So going on to our next theme with Tom on interior designs, with regards to creating space makeovers, do you have any inspiring stories, real life stories of where you've changed something and the client has just been so thankful for you really giving them a design transformation?
Yeah, it's probably one of the enjoyable parts of interior design. You often do get very emotional responses from your clients, from your work, or from the team's work, and hopefully they're positive.
Not always.
No. And I think most of my work, to be fair, has been commercial as opposed to domestic projects. I think when we're designing domestic projects, we really do often get more of a gooey kind of approach because you're dealing with somebody's home life, somebody's family life, and it's an incredibly personal experience to go through. So I've not done a huge amount of homes, but I do feel that, we've had some beautiful responses, especially doing educational projects, where we've seen the spaces that we can create for learning have been so, the school governors, the school teachers, the head teacher and so on, have been really kind of overwhelmed with what they get at the end sometimes, because they can see that it can improve their learning environment, so it can improve the quality of life for their students, their pupils while they're in school. We can create places that care for people more, that are more motivational, that are more inspiring, hopefully. So we can really tap into so many different things rather than just focusing on decoration. We can look at interior design deeply and look at the emotional benefits, the quality of life benefits and so on. We've also had some quite alarming, more negative emotional responses, but can be quite good in part of the learning process, part of the design process. And not really negative, but a good thing to maybe discuss on colours. Colour can be so subjective in interior design. So we do follow colour theory, colour coding and so on. But sometimes we can present a colour scheme that the whole design team is really confident about. And then occasionally the client may come back with a completely different response to what you're hoping for. But the good thing with colour is we can always adapt that so easily. So sometimes it might mean we've not listened well enough, the brief may not be strong enough. But also we find that as we go through a design process, when we guide clients through a design process, often the client's opinions, thoughts will change dramatically. Because if we're doing a good job, I think often we can teach them about design as they're teaching us about their work as we go through the process. So we learn from each other. So very often what a client wants to start with may be very different from what they want towards the end of the process. But yeah, we certainly do see some lovely kind of examples where you gain friendships through your clients. They want you to be part of their home life, or they love you turning up to share your presentations with them. And it can be a really nice thing. It's something that I think as long as we do a good job where we really get to try and know the client and get them to open up, especially on domestic projects, the more we can find out about their home life, the more we can design for that client. So one aspect we might look as a concept is for a space or a room in someone's home is focusing on a client's memories. So we'd ask them maybe about a favourite experience they've had or a great time in their life, and then we can try to kind of deconstruct that memory and then visualize it into an interior environment. So one room, for instance, could be a memory of somebody's holiday, somebody's work life, somebody's family life, or really just a moment in time, and doing it quite subtly. So for instance, if someone goes on holiday to a beautiful place, rather than having images, photographs of that place on the wall, we can look at their memory of that place and maybe look at design elements and principles, maybe looking at materials, colours, forms they experience in that place, and then reusing those items in the room as a kind of subtle plaything can be quite a nice idea.
This is a really, really great insight into the way that an interior designer, looks into everything to do with the person before they actually go out to design, which is really inclusive. It's inclusive, it takes time, it takes passion, it takes enthusiasm to do that. So with you kind of going into someone's space and trying not to invade their space with your ideas and your colour schemes, etc., have you kind of come across any successfully renovated spaces recently where, the client was just really taken back because they couldn't quite visualise, no matter how much you've provided them with, they just couldn't visualize what the end product was going to be. I know a lot of your clients, if not most of your clients, have been taken back by what they've seen, but were they ever shocked kind of, and wow, really, I didn't expect it to look like this. I know it's going to be great because, the plans look great, but
I think at the visualization stage, we do see that a lot, because often we try to create visuals to give the client a good glimpse of what the real thing's going to look like. So hopefully on handover day or towards the end of the build, the client's kind of hopefully familiar with what's being built, because if we've done good visual communication, if we've created some good visuals, that should be a good indicator. But I think especially when we present visuals at that stage of the process, where we can get some really, exciting, gooey responses, where they've understood the brief, we've been through a concept presentation with them, we've looked at the plan and maybe some elevations, but when we start really playing with the three-dimensional forms and adding colour, material to those spaces, and then fixtures and so on, all of the interior starts to come together and look real at that point. So when we share that in a good quality visualisation, whether it's a very creative, sketchy visual or a more photorealistic visual, both of those directions can be a great thing. And I think that's when we really see hopefully some emotion on the client's face, some positive emotion, or the mouth drop open. And that's what we aim for. It doesn't always go to plan, but as long as we can get some good feedback from them, if it doesn't go to plan, we can amend the designs until it does.
I love that. Always looking for any kind of feedback, whether it's positive or whether it's feedback that can help you improve in your next project to make an impact on someone else's life. You're almost like a hero, you're a hero, really. You're an interior design hero. You're going in to save people from what they've been experiencing, to make their experiences better, basically. That's how you'll see it. You'll fix that. Okay, so let's kind of carry on into we all have a budget. We all have increasingly tightened budgets with the current climate, the way that everything's going. So are there any kind of DIY and budget friendly designs that we can do as homeowners, or we can do as someone who's renting a property, or someone who's just got a room in a university hall? What can we do to make where we are much better, but on a budget?
Yeah, I think the first thing maybe to consider is, for anybody at home, you don't need an interior designer. It can be a great thing to have. I don't want to talk myself out of work, but everybody should be confident with their own taste. Whatever you like at home, go with it. I don't believe personally in good taste and bad taste. We all have our own preferences, our own visual, our own aesthetic preferences, but everybody has their own look, and a home is such a personal space where people can enjoy freedoms that often they can't enjoy elsewhere. So the main thing is to have confidence in yourself, and that anybody can have anything at home that we can afford, that we can have time to make or build. So I think some things is looking at used items as well, whether it's antiques, second-hand items, retro items, whatever you want to call them, because often we can find great value with those products, those materials. And then we don't always have to look at the latest, newest thing. We can look at reusing and adapting reused items. I think the antiques industry is especially something that interior designers could benefit from, and maybe homeowners too. I appreciate a lot of what we see in antique shops at the moment is not so visually appealing, maybe to the majority. That's one of the reasons why we see antiques often sold at a more affordable price. But if we could maybe change the trends around that and allow the two industries to work better together, antiques and interior designers, we could really provide some kind of more cost-effective, useful designs that, again, not creating a huge amount of environmental waste. And I think if you're going back to the DIY aspect at home, people can do so much themselves by scouring the internet, scouring different types of shops. There's so much available, probably more available than there ever has been. There's more of us on the planet. We all buy, we all consume, of those who can afford to buy. So there's always items around the world that are maybe become unloved and can be used again. It doesn't mean we have to really have a large amount of skill in reusing them, repurposing them, but we can paint a chair, we can tighten something up that maybe somebody else thought was damaged. So I think with some good research in, people can do a huge amount. And maybe that main thing is, though, the confidence. Just be confident with your own taste. Have what you want rather than somebody else dictate to you.
Yeah. And looking at it from the other side as well, with being on a budget, there's also, like you say, on the internet, we can also sell So if you think that's something, oh, it's an old wardrobe, oh, it's an old desk, oh, it's an old something, and you want to sell it, and that will help you also get a budget for you to do something different in your own area. Something that looks like waste to you might not be waste. And again, we're not contributing to the environmental waste here, and we're being more sustainable, recycling almost. But you get something at the end of it. There's a lot of platforms out there that you can sell your furniture in your interior. Maybe you've overbought on the paint or something, and you can always, no matter what you do, you either underbuy or overbuy on paint. I don't know. Sorry, that's my experience.
That's exactly right.
You either end up with way too much, or you end up with hardly any, and you've got to go back and find the right color again. But it's the way that it goes. And I think there's a lot of people who've got a lot of things in their house that need to kind of, you think it's waste, but like you say, Tom, you could just tighten it up, and there you go. It's brand new again, and someone else can benefit from that, and someone else can have that desk to study at, or have that desk to work at, and feel more comfortable in their environment rather than struggling in the way that they are. So recycling, sustainability, reduce less waste, and everyone has their own taste. Okay, just a bit of insight then, Tom. Have you ever been into an environment, whether it's a school, a house, a restaurant, whatever, and you walked in and you thought, who done the interior design for this? This is awful. If you had that experience, you must have had that experience.
I have. I'm sorry to say, yeah, it's very selfish. But yeah, very often on surveys. So we go and survey a site, especially in hospitality design. It's one of my favourite types of designing places that people choose to go to enjoy themselves, like cafes, bars, restaurants, and so on. So very often when we're going to survey those, they may have been designed maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago typically. And yeah, quite often we do think. But I appreciate 5, 10, 20 years after somebody looking at my project, they might be thinking the same. But yeah, if we do see this, I think it just shows how trends change so much, how visual, any kind of what's available changes so much in terms of material and technologies.
Have you ever walked back into one of your previous places and thought, what was I thinking with that colour palette, or, furnishings or anything?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or is you thinking, I was definitely on trend then, but this is definitely no longer on trend now?
Yeah, I like to be kind to myself and kind of lie mentally, thinking I was probably pushed into that by the client. It was a compromise. That's what your creative director wanted. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. But sometimes, I can certainly look back on designs and think some be really happy with and others not so happy. And I think that's it. There's so much that changes what we think is good design. I think from when we look back at how they perform functionally, be more happy with, but just on the visual and the aesthetic, I think our tastes change so much throughout our lives. Same with kind of taste, for fashion, for music, for food. All of our tastes, I think, constantly adapt, constantly change with our lifestyle, with our age and so on. So yeah, I do think that maybe some of the more colourful projects from earlier on, I might struggle with a little bit more now.
Oh, so as you age, so the colour palettes,
I think my colour palettes become a little bit more muted, or just generally maybe less kind of strong colours, strong hues, primary, secondary hues especially, and far more kind of natural material palettes. But then I'm probably influenced by trends, national and international trends, where we've seen maybe more natural materials becoming used more and more, and strong hues used in smaller quantities and in temporary items that are easily to be updated, just because colour trends change so quickly. So it can be quite hard when we use strong colours to make them to look really good, really successful for many years.
So I know that there's a psychology behind colour schemes and things like that. Would you say that depending on the projects you're working on, your psychology almost changes because you're looking at either vivid colours all day, or you're looking at, muted colours, as you mentioned? Would you say that affects, it comes back into your personal life and affects you as you're working on? So if you're working with brighter colours, you might feel happier in the evenings, or if you're working with more muted colours or greyish colours or something, you feel a bit more, it's just another day. Does it affect you at all?
I think it does, yeah. I think it's probably quite hard to pick up. Probably when you look back with hindsight, it might be easier to understand. But yeah, I think our mood changes the way we design, just like our designs can change people's mood. I think mood and kind of behaviour, or how you feel at the time, will affect a lot of how we're designing, or just how we feel about the design. So we could look at one design one day, think it's okay, look at that same design maybe years later and think very differently about it. So I do think as we go along, we're quite susceptible to to an environment, what's going on around us, and that will change our feelings.
Perfect. So that was colour psychology in design, where we explored and dived into the impact of colours, looking into our moods and the overall design aesthetics and how we feel when we're within buildings. Coming up next on Optimise et al., functional and space-saving design. So do you have any kind of innovative ideas for us to maximise, our small apartments or our small living spaces?
Multifunctional design is a really key part. So typically we think of large open spaces and interiors as something that only maybe the chosen few can afford. But if we have more and more open plan spaces that can be adapted to different functions, so just like we've had forever people maybe using a dining table to work on at some point, to study on, the more we can consider multifunctional designs, then we don't need so many different spaces. Transportation's another great way of getting influence about designing small spaces, especially with storage. When we look at boats, mobile homes and so on, any kind of nomadic life, when people need to carry what they have with them, there are always ways of having incredible ways of storage.
Designing for wellness, there's a connection between interior design and well-being that we've established, but there's also connections between biophilic design, which I know you're passionate about and encourage, but also kind of natural daylighting and air quality. Just talk to us a bit more about what biophilic design is.
There's a shallow water pool at the Pompidou in Paris on one of the lower roofs. So you can walk out in that area. It's an outdoor space on a roof, but it's used as a sculpture garden. So it's just very shallow water, maybe only a centimetre or so over a tray. These spaces can look incredible indoors as well. So for instance, designing a home in Tuscany in Italy, realising that people are looking for the shade of the outdoor space or indoor spaces, rather than in England so much focused on where we get warmth or sunlight. So really thinking about the site, the environment, and the people, the culture and so on can teach us so much. So anyone who can love the job, no matter what we're doing, I think are very, very fortunate people. So anybody who's thinking of getting into design, I'd really recommend they have a go. It's certainly not a job for young people, it's a job for anybody.